Hello, everybody. Hi, beautiful people. Happy Monday. Good morning. This is day one of our video day series on being at peace with being at home. I am Alicia Eichmann from AliciaSoulAdventure.com. It's kind of early. Just feels like it's early. The world is crazy. And I'm trying not to drink coffee every morning. Okay, welcome. Thank you for being here. I just want to dive right in. Keep this pretty short so that we can do one every day. There are two things that I want to do every day. I am somebody who right now is very blessed to just be at home and be safe and healthy and just cooped up. And so this video series is going to be aimed at those of us who are currently ourselves physically just, okay, but we're feeling the psychic weight of just everything that's going on in the world. And we're probably feeling a mixture of boredom, of just being cooped up, and then guilt over not doing enough or not knowing what to do or being okay when others aren't okay. Kind of that feeling that you get every time you hear about an earthquake or a natural disaster somewhere else. Just all that mixture of feelings of being that place where it's not happening to you, but it's happening, and you know it affects you, but it doesn't. So anyways, two things I want to do every day. One, I'm going to lay some truth on you. We're going to go deep into some fun ideas and concepts that are going to help you internally deal with your internal world. Because out of the heart, the mind speaks. Out of this beautiful, wonderful brain comes everything in our lives. And so we're going to talk about mindset and our beliefs and our relationship with ourselves. And the second thing, because that's where we're at and that's the opportunity, I think being cooped up, one of the single biggest opportunities we have right now, there's two sides of the coin, but I think the opportunity is to face ourselves. And that's what I want to help you do. We're being forced to slow down and that's an opportunity to face ourselves. But there's going to be resistance there. And that's what Spirit took me through this. God took me through this in the last year. And so this is what we're going to do together. The second thing I want to do every day, it's going to be a separate video. I might pick a time. We'll see. But I want to pray. I'm going to put a prayer up. I'm going to pray in video every day and put that up in the Facebook group and ask you guys to join with me. And if you guys want to add prayer requests, we'll cover those too. I want to develop a habit of praying together. But this group of videos, the first of which is right now, is going to be about the theology, for lack of a better word. Okay, so day one today, I want to talk to you about your two inner selves. There are two selves in your consciousness, your awareness, inside your mind. I've heard it described as an ego and a soul, an outer self and an inner self. And I also see it as being parallel to the idea of the sinful nature and the Holy Spirit. So a great way to start thinking about this is, have you ever thought to yourself, man, I'm just sick of myself, right? I heard Eckhart Tolle say that in The Power of Now. He was talking about his story and how he was super depressed and almost super suicidal. And he was just like, I'm so sick of myself. And then he thought, wait, who is the me that is sick of me? So, and I just thought, as I've been really praying and contemplating and meditating and sending you love and thinking about, praying like, God, what is the word that could help us? Like those of us who are just stuck at home, what is the opportunity? What are you calling us to? What is the realization that we can have, the truth that I can help us talk about? And what I realized I wanted to start with was just this concept. I've heard many people talk about this idea as the beginning of their awakening. I was just chatting with somebody on Instagram, and she was saying the biggest takeaway from her on from the power of now was this idea that she was the watcher of her thoughts. She was not her thoughts. And I was like, oh yeah, one of my early realizations that I had was, I am not my ego. And I remember I wrote it on a sticky note and I stuck it up on my wall, even though and it took me a while to understand what it meant. But basically, this is a foundation for today, so I'm just going to talk about this a bit, and then we're going to go on to different facets of this. But you are not your ego. You are not your thoughts. You are the watcher of your thoughts. You are the inner self. You are the spirit inside you. You are your soul. You are not your ego, your rational thoughts. You are not your fear. You are love. Marianne Williamson says that love is what we were born with, and fear is what we learn here. And the spiritual journey is a relearning of love and making that shift back. So if you haven't read it yet, feel free to check out my book, Becoming Spiritual, Alicia Eichmann. It's on Amazon. But in that, I talk about the 10 shifts. And in this series, I'm going to try to focus, they all kind of interweave together, but I'm going to focus on the one that is the shift from your ego to your soul. And if you want some fun reading on this, I had the stack of books over there. I can put them somewhere. But Your Sacred Self by Wayne Dyer, he has that whole book that he wrote, Your Sacred Self, is all about the ego. And so he talks about things like, he has a whole chapter on cultivating the witness, which is that same concept. And he talks about kind of like just taking time to mentally identify with that part of yourself that's separate and otherworldly, that's spirit, that is watching. Like, you can mentally put yourself up on a shelf and look down and watch everything that you do. Right? Like, there's the thinker of your thoughts, and then there's the one that's watching the thoughts. This all gets into. Anyways, cultivating the witness. Stephen Pressfield talks about chatter, and he talks about how to be creative and embrace the creative process, and how to deal with the resistance to being creative. And I believe creativity comes from our soul. It comes from our spirit. And so Stephen Pressfield, I love his stuff, and he never overtly talks about it as spiritual, but he's describing a spiritual experience. When I love the book Do the Work. It's like really tiny and small. That's a great one. But yeah, he just talks about this idea of resistance, and this he talks about it as this resistance is this force that exists, that shows up to counter anytime you want to do anything big or awesome or courageous, anything like lose weight or start a business or fall in love, or just anything that's big and long term and that's not short term and that takes courage. He talks about how resistance arises to kind of combat that, and you have to wrestle. So sometimes we see the meme, or just this iconic idea of like the two, the devil and the angel or whatever, like on the shoulders wrestling with each other. Basically, my point is that to whatever extent you're aware of this concept already, I want to push you to increase your awareness of just this idea that you have this wrestling of your two selves inside your mind, and the beginning of spiritual awakening and awareness. And when I say spiritual awakening, I'm referring to just this going to the next level in consciousness that I just believe our society needs to do in order to not destroy itself. Like, in order to, Carolyn Myss talks about this. She says that when the nuclear bomb was created, it created the necessity for us to evolve to the next level of goodness and living into our higher self and becoming spiritual. And that just means becoming aligned with love instead of fear, and letting go of separation and realizing that we're connected, because now we are so connected. Because of the connected nature, just physically connected, and like energy, just with the internet and the connectedness of our global society today, all of our cultures are coming into contact with each other, and we're being forced to grapple with our differences. And so, from reading all the spiritual teachers, the two biggest truths that I've read are that we are spirit, that we're the oneness, that we are one with God, that our soul is a wave of the ocean that is God. And then the other one is that we are all waves of the ocean, and so we're all connected. We're all connected in spirit. So our oneness with God, our eternal nature, and then our connectedness with each other are the two just kind of biggest core fundamental truths that I found from reading all the spiritual teachers. And then from that, you get so many other things like love. God is love, and so you are love, and your true nature is love. And so, yeah, so love and fear. Let's take it back to kind of the focus on the division. Um, one of the early realizations that I had from reading some of Gabrielle Bernstein's stuff was that every moment when I am in a fearful thought, I can choose to find my way back to peace and love. And she has some meditations and some things that you can say. And she's just like, say, I choose to see peace instead of this, or I choose to align myself with love. And so I've talked about this some, but whenever you have a decision, which this is a great point for what we're talking about right now, we have lots of small daily decisions, whether to snap at our husbands, whether to yell at our kids, whether to binge on Netflix or do something productive or more nourishing. Now, there is totally a time for Netflix. There is a time for decompressing and mentally taking a break. But yeah, I like deciding when to do that and when you know it's time to, like, you've been refreshed and now you're just resisting life or resisting the world or not wanting to go back to whatever you should be working on. Whenever you have all these tiny decisions, you can literally ask yourself, if I'm in a place of love, and if I'm motivated from love, operating out of love, what would I do? If I'm in a place of fear, if I'm in a fearful state, operating out of fear, being motivated by fear, what would I do? And that will show you. And that's something I've been practicing day by day. And yeah. And so those are the two voices in your head. You can apply this in so many ways. The ego and the soul. Wayne Dyer in The Power of Attention says the ego is, your ego is like what I have, what I do, what people think of me. Oh, this idea that I am what I have. I am the stuff that I have. I am the things that I do and say. I am my reputation. So I am what people think of me. And then I am separated from God, and I'm separated from others, and I am separated from the things that I need. So lack mentality. The things that I need are separate from me. They're not from me, and that causes anxiety because I need things that are separate and I don't know how to get them, right? So all of that, that is Wayne Dyer's fun, one way to summarize the thoughts of the ego. And so the soul, the identity of the soul is this idea that I am an eternal being having a human experience. I am, a son or daughter of God, a emanation from divine source. There's a lot of different ways that people use terminology to talk about that. And I think that that's helpful. So language is a whole thing that I'm going to talk about at some point, because I think, like, I came back to my faith by exploring people who used other terminology like energy and vibration, because it was fresh and I was able to receive it. And then once now I've come back through and now I read what Jesus said, and things that I never understood that he said, I'm like, oh, I get it. Because I learned it and read it so many times that I needed a fresh awareness. And I believe God's been speaking to those who are hungry, to those who will listen, all throughout history. And there are modern teachers who have been hearing from Spirit who can help us interpret older traditions and apply them to today. So, anyways, I love ecumenical stuff. We'll get off onto that. But I would just say, I'm going to throw different words like God and Spirit out there, trying to get hung up on that. I would love for us to have that conversation, because I think that will help us. If you want more on that, I love Rob Bell's book, What We Talk About When We Talk About God. He talks about language. He talks about how God is always ahead of us, but different religions at times can make it look like God is behind what's going on in the world, but God's never behind. And God's not a he or a she, but there have been traditions that have covered it that way, and that's useful. Anyways, not getting into all that today. So I want to wrap this video up for today. Okay, so your takeaway for today is that I want you to just practice being aware of the two voices, of the two modes, of the two states. You have a fearful state and a loving state. The loving state is spirit. It is your true self. The fearful state is your ego. It is you could say it's your sinful nature. I don't like, in some ways, I don't like the connotation of sinful. Sin means separate from God. Um, I don't want to get into that right now. But basically, you have a fearful state and you have a loving state. And you can, at every single moment, you can choose which one to operate out of. And, oh, so let me share one last thing from Wayne Dyer's book. He talks about this idea of when we are analyzing and thinking and just analyzing, that like over analyzing, thinking and ruminating on something, he talks about how that is the ego and that's rational thought, and that's not actually useful and productive. I used to do that all the time. Well, over the last year, I've kicked that habit. I find myself, so I want to encourage you, if you catch yourself doing that, you can choose to instead slow down, ask spirit to come sit with you, align yourself with spirit and with love, and choose to trust and to sit in peace. You can be doing stuff, but just it's a mental shift to just, because that over analyzing and rational, like trying to figure this out, that comes from a striving mentality and perspective that believes that it's all on you and you're by yourself and you have to figure everything out. And so it leads you throughout the day to constantly be thinking that if you spend hours just wrestling and analyzing, and if the kids do this, and if he does that at this time, and if I make this from the grocery store, and if I, all the different, like the spaghetti of things that are in our brain, like, yes, we'll have to do some multitasking, and yes, there's a productive way to make lists and stuff, but it's the spirit and the mindset of stressing your brain from a striving lack mentality that I want you to know that you can choose to stop living from, and that you can begin to make the shift instead. I've had times, recently where I like chose not to be anxious and ruminate and just kind of like, oh, take days trying to figure something out. Instead, I spent time with my family, or I spent time with my kids, or I did the things that needed to be done. And then I sat and I was quiet and I meditated and I was just like, Spirit, I'm just going to sit with Spirit, align myself with, goodness and light, and just pray to God. But we'll get into prayer. But there's a prayerful state that is just sitting and being with God. And if you can learn to silence your mind and just to be, some of the spiritual teachers have said, God is silence. You find God in the silence, because sometimes there are no words, right? Like words fail us when it comes to what God is. So anyways, I've had several times where I've done that and I just sat, and the answer that I've been looking for just dropped in my spirit. Carolyn Miss says something really cool about time, and basically you can agonize over trying to figure things out, or you can begin to take this spiritual journey of flipping the switch from being anxious and believing that you're all alone, or feeling that God is like way out there, and for the trivial stuff you're just by yourself and you're on your own, you have to figure everything out. You can make a shift from that mindset to shifting to the truth that you are love, that you are God, that you are connected to God, that you're connected to spirit, the spirit is always with you, that love is your true nature, that you are spirit, you're a spiritual being having a human experience, that you're surrounded by assistance of all kinds, that you have all of the resources of the universe at your fingertips, that your soul has come here for a reason, and that you're going to be equipped with everything that you need for that. Yeah, so many things. I'm so excited to tease at all these different things. I'm just going to make myself stop because I had a few thoughts, but I'll figure out what they were and we'll keep going. So, final thought, pay attention to the conversation you have inside your head and just practice awareness and just start to pay attention and to think about these things. So, I'll be back in later today to just lead some prayer, just do some praying, pray the news. Kind of, I saw that somewhere and I was like, oh, I like that, pray the news. We need to do that. But yeah, I don't want to make this too long, so I'm just gonna make myself stop talking. All right, I love you, all my love. I will see you in the next video.